Hello and welcome to Louise Singleton Creations. I was recently sent this fabulous new cup mould from Moulds and Shapes and I love it and I was dying to have a go. I had a plan in my head to make them look like glass cups with the drink inside, and I knew that I needed to have the handle clear and the top of the cup clear to make it look realistic. And so in today's video I'm going to be showing you how I made barriers in the mould without damaging the mould to bring my plan to life. Moulds and Shapes are also very kindly supplying another one of these cup moulds for one of my viewers to win. So if you would like to win one, stay tuned until the end and I'll give you all the details. With all that said, enjoy the video. I wanted to try out my plan before filming just in case it didn't work, so just ignore those other 3 cups that are already done and I'll show you the process on the last one. So to create the barrier inside my cup, I cut a piece of cardboard and folded it into a number 7 shape or an L shape. And obviously I made it fit into the size of the coaster. So you'll have to just keep trying it out, check it fits, check that it covers the openings for the handle, and then it'll be fine. And I'm just curving that smaller piece there so it fits nicely into the cup. And then once you've got it the right size, all you need to do is cover it with something that's sticky and shiny so that the resin can't soak into it. I'm using Shiny Shield Glossy Release Film from Resin Pro, and that works really well with resin. And you only need to cover the side of the cardboard that's going to come into contact with the resin. Once your barrier is covered, you need to attach some tape, and I've used aluminium tape and it did work quite well. It stopped the resin from seeping through underneath the barrier. However, I did struggle a little bit to get it off in the places where little bits of resin had stuck to it. So it's not 100% perfect for this job. It did work, but it was a bit tricky. So in a while, I'm going to show you another option of making a barrier in the cup mould, which actually does work a lot better. Anyway, once you've applied your tape to one part, don't try doing them both at once. Just fold it up onto itself, as you can see me doing here, because it makes it a lot easier to get it into position. And then, just hold it into place and stick the tape down. And then once you've got that one done, you can do the other part, and that's it really. Just make sure it's all smoothed down really well so that the resin can't leak through. Once I had the main part stuck down and it was all in position, I just cut some smaller pieces of tape for the more awkward bits, right at the edges. You need to think about anywhere where that resin is likely to leak and make sure it's all covered up. That's quite important because you don't want it leaking out. So now I'm going to show you a much more efficient alternative, which I came up with after I'd finished this project, but I thought I'd do it just to show you the alternative. I used an A4 sheet of acetate to create a shallow box which I taped at the corners, and then I poured in pure mould, silicone rubber from Resin Pro, and I left it for a day. Then I drew around a cup coaster which I'd made previously onto cardboard and then cut it out as a template. Then I took the sheet of silicone which I'd poured the previous day and I used my cardboard template to cut around to make the number 7 just like we made with the cardboard barrier, and this time it can go straight into the mould. It will cling to the mould. You don't have to use any tape or anything like that, and you can use it again and again. Let's get back to the project. Once all the barriers were in place, it was time to apply the resin. I chose my thickest resin, which is Art Pro Deluxe for this. You don't have to use that, but the logic for me was that if it's really thick, it's not going to leak through as much as a thinner resin would. The only thing with it is because it's such a high viscosity resin, it could be quite bubbly. And you really could do to get in there to get rid of the bubbles, but you can't in these small spaces. So my handles and the tops did turn out to be more bubbly than they would have been if I'd used a thinner resin. But still, I think it was good to be safe and not have any leakages. Where possible, I avoid using a torch or a heat gun with these moulds because it's really not good for them. So I use a little spritzer bottle with isopropyl alcohol in, and I spray where the resin is, and that really helps to release any bubbles. But I do wipe off all the excess from the other parts of the mould because, you know, alcohol isn't actually all that brilliant for moulds either, but it's the lesser of two evils. It's better than the heat guns. Okay, it's time to take off the barriers, and as you will see, I was struggling a little bit and it looks worse than it was. I had to use some force, but that wasn't the barrier on the resin. The barrier worked really well. The bit where it got stuck was where some of the resin had seeped under the barrier onto the tape, and I was struggling to get the tape off the resin. So that's the only place where it needed a bit of force. The actual barrier didn't stick to the resin. It was just that blinking tape. But anyway, I've shown you an alternative if you don't want to do it this way, or maybe you'll find a tape which works better as well. Right, it's time for the fun part now. For my first cup, I'm doing lemon tea. I've got real lemon, it's freeze-dried lemon, and I just checked first of all to see how much I could fit in there. And I think it was 4 pieces, 4 pieces, and I dipped it into resin before putting it into position in the cup, just to make sure it was completely coated. And then I didn't fill it up, I did a very thin layer so that the base of the cup was covered in resin. The reason I'm doing that is so that the lemon stays at the bottom and it doesn't float to the top. If I'd just put my tea colouring in there, the lemon would have floated to the top, you know, if I'd done the full thing. So that's why I've just done a really thin layer, let that cure, and then I'll add my coloured resin to finish it off. So yeah, I suppose it's a longer process doing it that way, but I really don't mind. I'm quite patient with things like that. You know, I prefer to do it the best way, and I felt that this was the best way. And I did the same in the other cups as well. The 2 top cups were going to have colour in, but I thought, seeing as I had enough clear resin left, I might as well put some in there, and it will help to seal, you know, under the bits that are already done that I had where I had the barriers. It would help to seal that as well, to make sure when I add my colour, it won't soak underneath the bits that I've already done. I hope I'm making sense. Anyway, we're on to the second cup. And with this one, I'm putting some berries in, and this time it's not real berries, it's resin ones. A while back, I made a mould of a real berry. I'll put a link in the description to that video showing how I made a mould of a berry. Anyway, I took one of those berries and I made a mould with some of this eye gum quick mould making compound. It's like a 2-part putty which you blend together in your hands. You just squeeze it all together until it's mixed and put in whatever you want to make a mould of, and after 10 minutes it's ready and you can use it. So it's really great stuff. It's from Resin Pro, and I'll put a link in the description. So yeah, I had all these berries which I made in that mould, and I'm just putting them all into position. Unfortunately, when I added the coloured resin, you lost all the texture. You couldn't see the texture in those berries, which was a real shame, but it still looked good in the end. So as I said before, I used some more of the resin because I'd mixed too much really on the other 2 cups, even though they were just going to have plain colour in them. Now, the thing is, because I still had some left in my cup, just a little bit, I decided to have an experiment to see if I could make the coffee or chocolate. I didn't know whether it was going to be coffee or chocolate. It depended on what colour I could mix. And I've really struggled with making the coffee colour in the past, so I thought I'd just have an experiment with what was left, and it actually worked. So rather than just wasting it and waiting for that clear to cure, I thought, why don't I just pour it in and mix it in with the clear that I've just poured in. So it was a bit of a funny way to do it, but it worked, and it meant I didn't waste that practice resin that I'd been using to get the colour right. And so to make that colour, I started off with some mica powder, which was the chocolate mica powder from Arteza. I added a little bit of white Colourfun pigment from Resin Pro, and the colour went kind of grey. It was not a very nice colour. So then I took the one that you can see on the left, which is called Alexa Marie, and that's a Colourfun pigment as well, number 3012. And once I added that, it really transformed the colour. So those three colours worked really well to make the chocolate colour, which I decided on. Once that was done, I thought, yeah, that looks more like chocolate now. So I do make life difficult, don't I? Right, the next day when all that was cured, it was time to add my colours. And the first one I'm going to do is my black coffee. And for that, I've used that chocolate pigment that I used yesterday for the chocolate. And that's the Arteza colour. And it's a really beautiful brown. So yeah, I had lots of clear mixed, and I just took a little bit of that clear and mixed the pigment into it. And for that one, it was just simply pouring it in, and that one was done. It was the easiest of the four. I'd decided that I wasn't completely happy with the chocolate one, so I added a little bit of that leftover brown to the bottom of the chocolate one, and then clear on the top above it, just to, merge them together and have it just darker at the bottom to make it look a little bit more interesting. And that really helped it to, add interest really. I left it for a while I did the other two coasters, just to let it do its own thing and see what happened. But it didn't really merge very much by itself, so I did go back to it a little bit later on and manipulate it a bit with my spatula. Right, now we're on to the fruit tea, and for this one I used Pebeo transparent red pigment. Actually it's called crimson, and I just used the tiniest bit and mixed it in, and it works beautifully for the fruit tea. I was really pleased with how it turned out. I applied a little bit and realised it was too light, so I just added a bit more and got it just right in the end. It's best to add a little bit at a time rather than adding too much. That's the way I think about it anyway. And finally we're on to the lemon tea, and for that one I decided to just use a little bit of copper mica powder from the Sahara range at Resin Pro, and that works quite well for the tea. I didn't want to cover the pieces of lemon up, so I went all the way around them and in between them, trying not to go over them, because I knew that at the end I would be adding a layer of clear resin to even everything up, so it wasn't a problem. So then I just filled everything up, made sure that that brown at the bottom of the chocolate was all blended in, and it was ready to wait for it to cure, and then add my clear coat the next day. Okay then, so it's all cured and it's time to add a layer of clear resin to the top. And the reason I need to add the clear resin is because it's a little bit lumpy, especially where the two parts meet, the handle and the main body of the cup. There's a ridge there where the two parts met, and so to make it all completely level, I needed that top layer of clear resin. I'm using iCrystal resin from Resin Pro for this top layer, just because it gives you such a beautiful crystal clear finish. Right, it's time to get these beauties out of the mould, and I've got to say these moulds from Moulds and Shapes are the best moulds I've ever worked with. They're so strong and durable, and the coasters or anything you're casting in them comes out so beautifully and easy. So yeah, I love them. And don't forget, I'll be telling you soon how you can win one of these cup moulds. So right, let's have a look. Right, the black coffee one, I love the colour of it, and I kind of love the texture of it. It doesn't look like real coffee, but I kind of like that pillowed texture that you get with a mica powder. So I think I'll get away with it. Actually, it almost looks like coffee beans. And the lemon tea one, yeah, again, I'm really happy with it. I think the copper mica powder works really well, and it gives it a little bit of a shimmer as well, so it makes it a little bit more interesting to look at. And the lemon works so well too. I was really happy with the lemon in there. The chocolate one in the end also looked really good. I especially like the cream on the top to give it a little bit more interest. And then there's the fruit tea one. I think the fruit tea one is actually my favourite, even though we kind of lost that texture that should have been there in the berries but was lost once the light stopped shining off all the different faceted areas. But I still loved it. I think it was really pretty. My next job was to add a gold rim, because some cups do have that gold rim on them, don't they? And I put some on the handle as well, and I used my gold pilot marker for that. And I do really like the pilot markers. I think they work really well and they last a really long time. I've had some markers, especially the Krylon ones. I love those for the effect you get from them. They're my favourite. But I found that they don't last very long. They seem to either run out of ink or dry out. And this pilot marker I've had for so long, and it's never dried out or run out. So yeah, I do really like that. And because I'd spent so long on these already and I wasn't 100% happy with them, I decided to have some text on there. So I went onto my computer and typed out the text that I wanted and cut it out on my Cricut Maker with some gold, onto some gold vinyl. And yeah, then I applied it using some transfer film onto the coasters. I smoothed the text down to make sure it was completely stuck and then carefully peeled off the transfer tape. If you haven't got a Cricut or another kind of cutting machine, I would highly recommend one because they're so great for making text to put onto your resin pieces. I just love the finishing touch that they give. Now that I've got text on there, and because they're going to be coasters for hot drinks, it needs a top coat to protect the text and also to protect the coasters from heat. And I'm using Heat Pro from Resin Pro. I've put little balls of clay underneath the coasters to elevate them in case any of the resin flows over the sides, which it shouldn't if you're careful, but just in case it's best to elevate them. And the good thing about using the clay is that you can put your spirit level onto your coaster to check that it's level, and if it's not level, you can just push it in the direction you need to and the clay will change shape and you can get them level nice and easily. So that's quite a good tip for elevating things for the top coat. So when you apply your top coat, you need to apply it to the middle. Don't go all the way to the edges. When you've found that you've got enough on, then you can start spreading it very carefully and gently to the edges so that it just sits into place without flowing over the sides. Okay, so they're all finished, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what a long process just to make a set of coasters. And it was a long process, but I enjoyed it. And if you enjoy it, why not? Everything doesn't have to be quick, does it? If you're making them to sell, okay, you're going to have to charge quite a bit more money, but I'm not making them to sell. I was making them just for the pleasure of it, and I enjoyed every minute, so it was fine that it took a long time. And so I think they've turned out really quite cute, don't you? I'm really pleased with them. Anyway, as I promised you, I have the details for how you can win one of these fabulous coaster moulds. Now, moulds and shapes ship almost worldwide. There's a handful of places that they don't ship to, but it is only a small handful. So, to be entered into the giveaway, all I need you to do is write the name of the country you live in the comments. You can add more to the comments if you like. I love hearing what you have to say, but make sure you write the name of your country. Then, when the winner's been selected at random, I will reply to that comment to let you know. I can't do it in a video because at the moment I'm scheduling all of my videos in advance because I'm moving house next month, so everything's done in advance and I can't do it the usual way. So that brings us to the end of the video, and I really hope you've enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, and I will see you again next time. Bye for now.